All right. Hey, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Hopefully everyone's week's going well. I am so excited to bring this live to you guys. I am a little bit under the weather, so if I cough or sneeze or do whatever, please forgive me. Um, but today we're gonna wait for a couple minutes here just to make sure people can log into the page and they can come on live here. But this session is recorded. So in case you don't get a chance to see the whole thing tonight, I hope you do, because every bit of information that we're going to talk about tonight is going to be pretty amazing. But there are so many of you that have gotten to know Dr. Mohab Rizkallah. He goes by Dr. Mo. Obviously, he is the author of Question 2 on the Massachusetts ballot, which passed by what were the final results on that?
72%.
72%, which is pretty incredible. And now the entire nation is talking about it. So we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes, just touch on that. But tonight's topic is really more about real estate. We're going to talk about how he's been able to achieve 30% ROI year after year, and is managing and owns over $350 million of real estate, which is pretty incredible. And he's a practicing orthodontist. Let's just get the facts right, because a lot of people said, well, why are you still practicing? You still practice orthodontics.
I do.
Yeah, so that's pretty amazing. So, but it's pretty incredible what you've achieved over the last decade or so. And I'm going to go over some of that stuff with people, but I just want to make sure people can log in and make sure they can watch this live. But again, if for any reason you don't get a chance to watch this tonight through and through, you'll be able to watch it later. It'll be saved in DIG. So Dr. Mo, you have a degree in biology, business admin, doctor of dental surgery. You're an orthodontist, and you were a valedictorian of your class in all 3 degrees. You graduated dental school in 2001. Is that right?
That's right.
And you were the class president for years 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, which is pretty amazing, because a lot of times we don't get the opportunity to really lead our class for 3 years in a row. So that in itself is a huge testament to what you set out to accomplish. Didn't just start all of a sudden. You've been really preparing for this all your life. And then back in 2004 is when you earned your orthodontics degree, and you've been practicing ever since 2004. Now, before we go into this question 2, can you tell people a little bit about what was the intention of spending $3 million of your own money on something like this, where you said you were out there to set an example? But tell me a little bit about that while people are still logging on.
So, at some point in my life, and I've expressed this actually, shout out to Bob D at DIG. I expressed this in a conversation with Bob online. At some point in my life, I decided I knew how much I knew how much I needed in terms of living expenses. And then everything above that became sort of a question of what's my life purpose. And anybody who knows me knows, I'm a very spiritual person, and I am here for a reason, and I'm not a consumer. Okay. And we're going to be talking about real estate today. I should say, I don't own a vacation home. That's a weird thing, right? For all the things I own, I don't own a vacation home. Why? It's actually not aligned to my purpose. So with that in mind, I've been watching my colleagues since I was in dental school, and caring for my colleagues since I was in dental school. That didn't start in dental school. I think all of us have certain things that make us, it's in our DNA, it's in our constitution. I have known since I was a child, I'm a servant. That's what I am. I'm proud to be that. That's what I am. I think being a noble servant is important. And so, in dental school, I watched my colleagues, struggle, and I did everything I could to help them. And that's why they reelected me in my 3rd year, and then again in my 4th year, because they knew I'm 100% for them, right? And I went to Stony Brook, which is, in my class, was only 32 people. It's a tiny school. Yeah. Such a great program. Not say enough about that. Awesome program. And I commented earlier in on your page to someone that I think Stony Brook is part of what we're led to question too for me, because in some weird way, Stony Brook made a family environment for me in dentistry. And I think that the 166,000 dentists in this country are part of my family. And in a weird way, I guess because I was president of my class, I don't know why, but I think there are certain of us that are shepherds. We're here to shepherd them. You're Sonny, you're a shepherd, right? And we're here to give people our insights and not want anything back, just serve, right? So question two, I had watched, my colleagues across the nation, right? And I said, I have the finances, and is my internet unstable? Are you seeing me?
I can hear you. There are a few moments where it's cutting out.
Okay, because it just said to me I'm unstable. Okay, so I think let me know if just maybe put a finger up if I'm not coming through properly.
I will.
But what happened with two, I saw my colleagues suffering, and I said, I don't think anyone's going to solve this. So let me just do it. And what people don't realize is that we didn't just make a law; we made a ballot law. It's the most powerful law you can make, because most laws where you start as a bill, by the time it becomes a law, it's got so many holes poked into it by your opponents that by the time it's a law, it's not that effective. That's not what we did. It's about, no one even saw it until I filed it. I filed it, and now it's going to become, in my opinion, the template for the nation. So, and funding it, $3 million. Okay, so what? By the time we're done with this conversation today, and you understand what I do with real estate, you're going to say it makes sense that he would do that.
Yeah. And what do you think? Over the next 3-5 years, how do you think that bill's that's gonna change the shape of dentistry?
So the law has two parts. It has an MLR, medical loss ratio of 83%, and it also has a reporting component. That reporting component was a given. I designed robust reporting, which will every state in the nation, so that every state can take that, not through necessarily a ballot legislature, and say, look at what Massachusetts uncovered. These are the real costs of insurance companies. This is how much they're making. Their filing is non-for-profits, but the reality is that they are killing it. And they're playing these shell games and putting it into this company, You don't even know where the money went, right? So I expect of years, that data is going to be coming out of Massachusetts, feeding the nation, and hopefully within 5 years, we're seeing all sorts of domino effects of states adopting that, and we will at that point have broken out of our cages as a nation, as dentists.
So right now, your goal would be eventually for insurance companies to pay out 83% of all the premiums that they collect back in insurance benefits for their members, correct?
Minimum 83%. We're
Minimum
going to take that up. We're going to take that up higher.
What is it currently?
In Massachusetts, it's about 70% or a little less.
And what is it nationwide?
I don't know. That's the problem, is we don't have that information.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So that's pretty powerful that people can actually get better care, higher max. Because right now, you think about $1,500, $2,000 max a year. It's nothing. You get a crown done,
ridiculous.
You get a root canal done, and you're done.
I could talk about this all night, but I think people are tuning in at this point. They want to hear. They want to hear about.
They want to hear about the 30% ROI on real estate. So we're going to jump into.
I got their attention.
I do want to. First of all, I do want to thank you for spending so much time with me, because over the last month and a half, 2 months, when I got to know you, I had no idea that you're gonna, sit on the phone and talk to me for a few hours just to help me understand real estate far more than what I knew. And I didn't expect that at all. And I think that was very nice of you. That was very giving of you, because, when we first connected, I said, look, you got to come on DIG. You got to talk about some of this stuff about the Massachusetts ballot. But when we started talking about real estate, that's when I really started to understand how this kind of went about, and you shared a lot of things with me. So thank you for doing that, because I feel like a lot of people are not going to take the time to do so. And what you're doing tonight is great, because there are a ton of people watching this. There are a ton of people going to watch this later, and they're going to learn so much about not only what you do, but steps that they can take to start their real estate journey.
Right.
And I
And
want
let
to
me,
point something out to you. I said this to you earlier. The other day, I posted a question. If you've got zero money invested in the stock market, message me. My intention with that question was thinking that, okay, there are probably a lot of people that don't invest in the stock market. So that means they're investing in other businesses or they're investing in real estate, especially. Well, I got over 100 messages and over 75% of them said, I don't invest in anything. My bank balance, cash balance is what I have. Money in cash is what I have. You know, I've got some CDs, I've got some money markets and that kind of stuff, and that's it. And pretty much the common theme was I just don't feel comfortable investing in real estate. I don't know how to get started in real estate. So it was pretty mind-boggling because my goal was to really kind of find a set of people that have invested in real estate. They don't believe in the stock market. They've done really well in real estate, and interview them and really kind of bring that forward as much as possible, like we're doing it tonight. But to hear the opposite is true, that there's so many people that are just sitting on cash and knowing what inflation is doing to our money, they're losing money essentially.
right. You know, and to the point of what tonight's about, right? You know, I can tell you, I'm not here to talk as much as I am here to show. Okay.
Yeah.
And I've prepared certain things that I want people to understand by showing them, because I provide practical and impactful solutions, investment solutions. By the time you're done with either this discussion, or we might have to break it up into two, depending on how the conversation goes, I want people to sort of imagine themselves keying a door and unlocking it, because they understand what they're supposed to do. This is practical. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Well, let's get started. So you lead this conversation. You know, tell us a little bit about the very, very beginning stages. How did you get started in real estate?
Oh, so let me. So before I graduated from my orthodontic program, I was renting a home at the time, and bought my office building. Is my connection going unstable here?
It did for a quick second there.
Okay, all right. I don't know why it's doing that, but so I bought an office building, and I actually want to take people for a little bit of a view of it. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet, but it should come up here in a second. It might be the connection. There we go. It's there now.
Okay, great. You see this? You see where it says Boston?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so I went to school at Boston University. I graduated in 2004, and I ended up buying property in Davis Square, Somerville. Okay, this is my office building. I bought that in 2004. It wasn't that big. I did additions to it, and this is the parking lot. Okay, that's 2004. That's when I got started. In 2007, and let me just pause and say something here. I am not here to show off. That's really not my heart. I actually could just as well not be doing this. Okay, I'm having this conversation to serve with it. Okay, so I'm going to show you a lot of things, but it's really meant to serve. Okay, so in 2007, by 2007, I didn't even own my own home in 2007. Okay, I was renting because I didn't have a home that I liked, and I had that I was sitting on, and some properties up the road. This is College Avenue. It's called College Avenue because Tufts University is right up the road. So right up the road, a conglomeration of properties became available. This one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Those 5. They all of a sudden became available. And someone came to me and said, how do you feel about buying that? The cost for those properties at the time was $3.2 million total. That was 2007. $3.2 million total. Those properties right now are worth over $15 million, just so you have a perspective on how much their value has gone up. Okay. So at that time, you know, I had to put some money down. I put down about 25% on those, and I bought those properties. Since then, I added properties to it. So I bought that one. I bought this one over here. Can you see it when I point here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Then this one here on the corner, and then I bought that one, and then I bought that one, and then that one, that one, that one. And you know, when you really look at where I'm at, all of a sudden you start to go down the road, and Then I got 10 family right there. Okay. And then I bought the one that's the through passage to the other street, that right now into 3 units. And I just kept conglomerating them. Okay. And I can say to you, I'm going to pause, that this is a rental town. Okay. It's not a homeowner town. These are multifamily houses. So those houses that I was showing you there, that's a two-family, a two-family, a two-family, a two-family. This is a commercial building with a dental office in it, not my dental office. I rent it to a wonderful dentist, and another commercial space next to it, and many residential spaces inside of it. But mostly I own residential buildings. And the reason I do that is because I actually find in my area, commercial is a dog. I don't do well with commercial, and I can tell you that the trends are actually not supporting commercial. They're supporting residential. And if you look at just population growth, when you're investing, you're looking at trends. Population growth is a huge trend. Here's a trend. They're not making any more land. That's a trend. It's a stagnant trend. Okay. We're not making more land unless you're on a volcanic island. Okay. And we're growing. In the last 50 years, the population of the world has grown more than double in the last 50 years, right? That's why we have such expensive properties. That's why we have such high rents, et cetera, et cetera. That's an important trend when you're looking at investing. Now, I want to take a moment to just continue on the aerial view here. So jumbos, for you Tufts people, that's Tufts. That's Tufts undergrad, okay? A lot of the things that I'm going to be showing you, you can read a little bit between the lines, but this community is a rental community. It's outside of Boston. It's a good suburb. A lot of people can't afford the cost of Boston, but so they'll actually go into a neighboring community. How do they get to that neighboring community? Well, that neighboring community typically has transportation. So Davis Square has Davis T Station right there. That's the red line. Okay. So again, I'm talking between the lines here. Think about it, transportation. You've got a university area here. You've got people who are coming into this area who are transients. They're coming in and out. Many of them are grad students. They have parents who are co-signing with them on a lease. This is a rental community. If you do what I'm doing in a neighboring community, like just any neighboring community that is a single family community, you'll never survive. Now, let me just show you something. I'm going to turn this back into 2D. You see all these trees and all this green here? Mm-hmm. That's a single family community, okay? If you go back to where I was at, how many trees? Not a lot. This is not, people in single families have a lot of trees. In rental areas, not so much. So it just kind of gives you a guide of how do you start finding this. And I'm going to give you definitive ways to find rental communities. But if I were to try to rent space as residential in the area I just showed you, which is Newton, Massachusetts, it's not going to perform. But if I put it in the right place, it'll perform. Now, I want to show you some other interesting things, just so you have some idea of sort of the vastness of some of the things that I do. Most of my work is within 3 miles of my office, okay, in terms of investment properties. So that's a key point. Invest where you are, okay? Know where your property is at. You know the area, okay? Mm-hmm. But let's look at 40 Norris Street in Cambridge, okay? Just to give you an idea of the different things I dabble in, but. So this is an interesting building. This is a historic building. I bought it. It actually had school kids in it. And when I bought it, this is a 60,000 square foot building. I turned into 30 apartments. It makes $100,000 a month. Okay, that's a great property. Now, if you take that property and you kind of get down on the street and you kind of see what this thing looks like, this is a beautiful building, right? Now, I'm not suggesting that people do this, but I want you to kind of get sort of the breadth of what we're talking about here. Now, if I go to, because we do have different people at different levels of skill and knowledge in this conversation. I just kind of want to get all of it out there. So 131 Orchard Street in Somerville. It was a rundown building when I bought it. That's a 28 unit building. And if you land in front of it, you want your tenants to walk up to their building and feel good about it. That's important. You know, street appeal, it's important. If you don't care about street appeal, you're not going to rent well. So what do? You know, we put these beautiful plantings in. I designed actually this granite border here and pavers, and you know, we repointed the entire building. Why? It actually makes the rents go up. In effect, and we talked about this the other day, Sonny, the more you improve your building, the better it'll perform. So if you're cheap about your properties, you're going to have lower rents and you're not going to have great tenants. I like picky tenants. When my tenants are picky, I know they're going to pay the rent. I know they're credit worthy. So if you are being cheap about what you invest in your property, you'll not get good performance out of it.
Attract cheaper tenants. Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good testament to what we talked about the other day. You know, just even fixing up, making sure you have fresh paint, good, decent light fixtures, decent countertops, decent cabinetry, and all that kind of stuff. All those little things start to matter because one, you're going to get better longevity out of that stuff, but you're also going to get higher quality tenant that's willing to pay a little bit more. And for them, they might say, well, I'll pay the extra $200 a month because this has better amenities in this unit compared to the unit down the street.
Exactly. So, and I'm actually going to be taking you now to another one, and I'm actually going to take you inside this one. Okay. So this one I bought in 2010, and then I refinanced it in 2015, and I'm about to refinance it again. So let me take you on the street to show you what it looked like about 2 years ago. It started to get a little bit run down. It's actually a beautiful building, but it started to get run down. The cedar started to fade and whatnot. So we decided it was time to gut renovate that. We did gut renovate it. The street view is not up to date anymore, but for some reason the aerial is. So this is what it looks like now. Beautiful hardy plank siding. We redid the whole thing. And I'm going to be showing you actually how the property value changed, how much I was able to refi, and I'm going to walk everybody through how to make their money work so hard for them using this property. And I do this in all the properties. This is a 3-family house. I can tell you the easiest property for you to get into is a 2-family. I own like 80 of those. I mean, they're easy peasy, these 2-family homes. But let's take a moment and look at 2 Aberdeen. I'm gonna go bring up some video on this, okay? So this is the kitchen at 2 Aberdeen. Did that come through okay, Sonny?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is the kitchen. Let's talk about this for a moment, okay? These are quality cabinets. They are real wood cabinets. These are not veneered cabinets. They're real wood cabinets, which means they're durable. Look at the countertops. These are not trendy countertops. They are timeless granite. Okay. So if you're designing and you're trendy, it's going to be out of style. You can't be doing that. You've got durability even refers to fashion. So fashion durability. Okay. Now what's durable in this screen? You've got these durable hardwood cabinets. They're not going to peel and be and turn and have a problem where you have to replace it. These are granite tops. You know, everyone sometimes makes a mistake when they cook, and they've got to take the skillet off of the stove real quick. They need to put it somewhere. They put it down on the countertop. If you were cheap and you put a countertop there, now you got to replace it. Tenant moves out. Now you got to take the time to have a vacant unit for a period of time, replace it or whatever. But
Mo, it cut out for a second. Will you just repeat what kind of countertop you said?
This is a durable granite countertop.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's the type you don't want to do?
You don't want to do Formica.
Okay.
All right. So, and I'm sorry that this is cutting out. I'm terrible at that. I really don't usually have that happen. But
No,
continuing on here, you've got these hardwood cabinets, durable countertops. Look at the floor. It's hardwood. Okay. That's important for a rental. If you invest in hardwood early on, that no longer has the bug problems. Okay. So bed bugs are a problem in our world. Okay. You've got to know that. So if you have hardwood, you can manage that. Okay. If you have carpet, good luck. Right. Hardwood, and I'm getting nitty gritty here, but this is important for everybody to hear. It'll serve you later having heard this. make sure when you put in hardwood, you make them put 3 coats of polyurethane on it, not 2. 2 is going to fade. 3 is pretty bulletproof, unless your tenant is destructive. But you've made your places so nice that you can actually be selective about your tenants. You don't just let anybody in there. Your places are so nice that tenants are dying to be in your places. Okay, you see what just happened there?
Yeah.
Now you are selective and you're able to protect your property because you have good people in there, right? So providing great spaces. Now keep looking at this. So you've got these wonderful appliances that are easy to swap, right? So this stove could be swapped in 20 minutes. Okay, it's a standard 30-inch wide stove. Now, if you did one of those countertop stoves that are sort of inset, good luck with that. Now, you may not find that size. Okay, that's much harder to find. So when you select it, you really want to be selecting for swappability, right? So standard 30-inch microwave, standard, right? So now let me back up and just sort of show you other things in that unit. So nice shiny hardwood floors. Now look here. Do you see that baseboard heat? That's baseboard heat, okay? We don't like HVAC in our small buildings. In our big buildings, it's going to have to be there, okay? But in our small buildings, forced hot water is bulletproof, okay? If you have HVAC in all of your buildings, central air, you're going to have so many problems, okay? And when the heat goes out or there's a problem, try to find an HVAC contractor. I can assure you, it'll be easier to find a plumber to fix this heat than to find an HVAC contractor who knows what they're doing. They don't exist, okay? So this is something you need to know. In smaller buildings, 2 families, 3 families, don't use central air if you can avoid it. Now that means that how are they going to cool their spaces? They're going to pop that window open and they're going to put in an in-window air conditioner. Who owns that air conditioner? They do. When it goes that bad, are you dealing with them calling you? No. What if you don't respond fast enough, and you have one of those a central air problem? You don't respond fast enough. If you have terrible tenants, which I don't, because I'm very selective about my tenants, they could call the health department, and you have a problem there. So all of these little things that I'm saying are little pearls. You think you want HVAC. No, you don't. It's not your problem anymore, and it helps to just avoid these headaches when the tenant. So backing up, we're looking at a bedroom, okay, and there's a double door closet. This is not hard to understand. People need places to put their stuff, right, to hang their stuff. So give them ample closet space. This sounds obvious when I say it, but when you go to do it and you decide you're going to be, cheap about the closet space, remember what I said. Don't do that. You've got to treat it like you live there. If you live there and you'd want to live there, then you'll have tenants that want to live there. So looking at this, you can see that kitchen now from the living room. And what do you have at that kitchen? You have an overhanging bar stool eat-in counter. This is cool stuff. People can appreciate this. So I'm gonna skip out of this, okay? But I really want to I wanted to just show you. Actually, let me go to the end for a second, because at the end you get to see. So let me actually show you this bathroom, okay? So this is not a complex bathroom, okay? But it's clean. It's clean. What are the tiles? I like white tiles. Why? Because they're timeless, right? They have to be installed well. You got to make sure you're not getting cracking tiles. You got to hire a good installer. This is not a job for somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. But if you do it right, that bathroom is going to be clean and neat, and that's what your tenants are looking for. They're not, what they're not looking for? They don't need an overly fancy bathroom that you're going to make them pay for. Okay, they need a simple and clean bathroom. Now, if I fast forward all the way to the end and just show you some outdoor space, okay? So there's an outdoor space for them to hang out on. These are amenities that have value, and they will actually increase your rents. Now, I'm gonna jump out of that. But what I've done so far is I've kind of gotten people to feel this with me. Okay, you've walked into these properties, and if this is what you want to be producing, you don't want to over improve it, but you want to make sure that you've put money in the right areas: the bathrooms, the kitchens, the floors, some outdoor space. All right. How am I doing so far here?
You're doing great. I think we also have some questions coming up here. And we can get through some of these, or you can write them down. We can answer them later.
Why don't we not answer them right now if you don't mind? Because I really want to get to some keys. And then
Sure.
maybe we'll say at some point, we're going to call it for this meeting and answer some questions. Okay.
Sure.
But let me get through some keys here. Okay. So we went through a tour outside, we went through a tour inside. I want you to know that every building that we saw in our aerial view on a rental area is a cash register. Every single one. You need to think of it that way. It's a cash register.
Mm-hmm.
And here's my message, okay? And I might say this twice. If you do real estate right, you can put some money into it initially. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to turn it into a fist as if I'm holding money, okay? You can put some money into the property initially. Okay, imagine I'm just putting it into the property, like I'm putting it right into 2 Aberdeen, that yellow house, okay? You can put some money into the property initially, and then later take all of it out, but you still own the property, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can go in, open your hand and take more out. And here's the kicker. It's all tax-free when you do that. And I'm going to show you how. So I'll say it again. If you do real estate right, you actually don't put your money in the property. You lend your money to the property. You lend it, you take it out, you go put it somewhere else, and then you go back in that property and you take more out and you go put it somewhere else. And everything you took out was tax-free. So I want to go through 4 key points. Okay, these are the keys to successful real estate. And I want to now entitle this meeting. Okay, I want to give it the title. Okay. This is the real estate discipline. These 4 keys, the real estate discipline. Okay. I'm not just talking about real estate investing. Investing has a lot of different undisciplined things. This is entitled the real estate discipline, 4 keys. Number 1, select properties with good rents and low vacancies. That seems so obvious. It's not obvious when you're actually applying it. You see a property, you're like, oh, I love that house. It's so pretty. I don't care if you love that house. It's so pretty. Okay. What are its rents? What are its vacancies? Okay. Key number 2, mortgage 70 to 80% of the purchase price. Why is that important? Now, I caught everybody's eye when I said, I'll give you a 30% return on investment, right? Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, I do much better than 30%. 30% is a minimum. Okay. And I'll show you how. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you with this little whiteboard that I made. In this little whiteboard, I have a house at the top, okay? Just a 2-family house. Anybody can get into a 2-family house, just put some money together. You can do it, okay? It's a 2-family house. And if you look carefully, it says 1M in it. I'm giving the number of that house a $1 million 2-family house. Now, it's an easy number, okay? Different properties or different areas are going to have different values. In my area, a 2-family house is $1 million. That's what it is, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, if you say to me, and this is something that people often say, they say, I don't want any debt. I want to own it all outright so that I get all the income. And I say, no, you don't. Because if you get income on that house, you're taxed. What I'm going to show you is how to get income out of it that is not taxed because it's not coming out as income. Here's how it goes. You have to understand the return on investment from the standpoint of property appreciation. Okay, I'm going to tell you that on average in this nation, the average appreciation of a piece of property per year is about 5%. Okay, now that means that a $1 million property, and we're going to draw here, a $1 million property after 1 year, what does it output? It outputs $50,000, right? 50K, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if you are getting a return on investment of 50K and you put $1 million in, your return on investment is 5%, right? But what if you didn't put $1 million in that property? Let's say you have $1 million that you can invest, but instead of putting it into that property, you put $200,000 into those properties. Now, how much is the first one going to be after 1 year? How much will it have appreciated? 5%, right? Mm-hmm. They're each $1 million property, but you only put in 200 in each, right? Well, that means that one's now produced after 1 year, it's produced 50, right? This one's produced 50, this one's produced 50, this one's produced 50, this one's produced 50. And you only have $200,000 in each one of them. So instead of putting all your money up here where you end up with 50, you divided it over 5 houses, each producing a return on investment, an appreciation value of 5%, which is 50. That means you just improved your equity by 250K. Okay, 250K. Now you put $1 million in, right? You just divided it over everything. What's 250K as a return on investment on your $1 million?
25%.
25%. Wow. So what we just talked about here is leverage. Okay. You can do something with real estate that you can't do with anything else. You know, if you go to your banker and you say, I would like to leverage my stocks. So give me a loan on my stocks. Laugh you out the door. He won't do that for you. But real estate can do this. So on its face, I just said to you that if what I just said is that properties appreciate by 5% a year on average, then what I just said to you is immediately, boom, 25%. Okay, now let's test me. Okay, I actually prepared these. Look at this. Average US property value increase, 4.60%. 5%, right? Now in my area, it's actually higher than that, right? So in my area, let's see here. I pulled that up.
Mo, would you be able to make your screen bigger, the one you're on, because people want to see that whiteboard? Is it okay if I make it bigger for a few seconds here?
Yeah, of course, of course.
Okay.
I don't know how you do it, but whatever works for you.
Let's see, we're gonna try to.
They must be able to see this, no?
Yes, I think, but some of them when they're on, how about now? I think this should work better for a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So continuing on, I'll just leave this. I'll just hold this up here. Tell me if this is not what you're asking me to do, but
Yeah.
I'm just holding this up here. You want me to go through that again? Is that what you're asking me to do?
No, you just holding up that screen. The wording was fine, but this is good.
Okay, so again, the $1 million house, when you put all the money into it, okay, you don't have a mortgage, you're only getting 5% appreciation, okay, which means you're only getting every year 50K essentially. Okay, it's going to compound, but we're just simple non-compounding it appreciation. Okay, as opposed to if you take that $1 million and you put 20% in each house, okay, each one is going to increase in its value by 50K. At which point, at the end of year one, you have 250K in built-in equity. 250K, and you add $1 million into it, that's 25%. That's immediately 25% ROI. I haven't even talked to you about how your tenants pay down your principal. Okay, that's the other 5%. Okay, I could go on and on and on. It actually really goes higher. But on the screen right now, can I put this down for now?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Good.
So on the screen right now, I have U.S. average is 4.6%. Well, every state's a little bit different, but look at Massachusetts. Massachusetts is 7.9%. Okay, it's not 5%. Okay, do that multiplier. Okay, that's why I'm well over 30%, and I'm well over 30% for other reasons as well. But this is real stuff. Now, if you don't think it's real, I'll show you the numbers on Aberdeen. I did with Aberdeen, just as an example. I do it all the time. Let me go now though for a moment to key number 3. So key number 1. Select properties with good rents and low vacancies. Key number 2, mortgage at 70 to 80%. So you only have 20 to 30% into the building, okay? Key number 3, refinance every 5 years. This is so critical, so important, okay? And I'll show you why. Take cash out when you refinance up to a point where your cash flows is pretty much just slightly positive. You don't want income on these properties because you'll get property tax. You'll get taxed on the income. And key number 4, never sell. You don't need to. You can exit a property without selling it. You can't do that with a stock. You can't say, hey, I'm going to exit the stock partially, but I'm going to keep owning it. I'm going to keep control over it. No, you can't. But with property, you just refinance it. Okay, you take cash out of it, and you've exited it. You've exited money out of it, but you still control it, and it continues to grow. So here's what I want to do. I know that they have questions, but I'm going to pose some questions because I anticipate the questions I'm about to ask are some of the ones that they would have wanted to know. I'm going to pose a question. Why cash out?
Mhm.
Okay. This goes back to the whiteboard. Okay. If you don't cash out, okay, and you start increasing like that, you hold that property for say more than 5 years. After 5 years, you got $250,000 in that piece of property because it's 50 every year, right? Not compounding, but just simple math. That house is going to be $50,000 every year. So now you've got $250,000 in earned equity just sitting there. Okay. What's your return on investment when you have $200,000 that you originally put in and 250? Now you have 450 in the property. Your return on investment is still 50 per year. Okay, you lower your return on investment if you don't exit it. See, you got to get it back down to that number so that your return on investment stays up at 25, 30+%. Okay, refinancing is critical. Okay, now then you take that money, okay, so let's say after 5 years, okay, after 5 years, that 50 became 250, right? This is you just split that out now. You can keep 200 or so in that property, take the 250, go buy another one. That another one is going to produce this every year, 50, right? So now you've got 30% and you've split the properties and they're all appraising, and all of a sudden the one became the two. Well, after 5 years, the two became the four. The four became the eight. Okay. What I just described to you is exponential growth of your portfolio. That's what I just said. Where do you see that? Where do you get that kind of growth of a portfolio where it's exponential? Now, question number 2. Do you get taxed when you cash out? So we just described a situation where you had 200,000 in, you waited 5 years, you pulled out 250. Okay. Did you get taxed? No. That is tax-free. Now, if you had all that $1 million and you were getting income tax, you're getting income on it, you're going to get taxed. But if you take that 250 out, it's tax-free. Think about that. What you can do with $250,000 tax-free. Number 3, how much cash out is too much? Good question, right? I don't want to over leverage. Here's the cool thing about it. When you go to take money out, you have to ask a bank to let you take money out, to refinance it. Banks will discipline you. They will not allow you to take too much money out. So what the banks use is this term called debt service coverage ratio. Okay, what that means is that if you get all your revenue, which is your rents, okay, and then you pay all your expenses, which say your expenses are like 20%. That's a good expense range. Okay, that means you have 80% of your original revenue as net income. Okay, you then have that 80% that you can go take a mortgage on. Okay, and you say to the bank, I want an 80% mortgage. They're going to say, we may give you 80%. We want to know how much that 80% that money is that you have left over after expenses, and we're not going to give you exactly enough to be cash flow neutral. We're going to give you enough so that you have 20% extra in cash flow. That's called a 1.2% debt coverage service ratio. Okay, so the bank will discipline you. So my question 3 was, how much cash out is too much? I need to bring something. Hold on a second here. How much cash out is too much? The answer is get as much as the bank will give you, because they're going to discipline you. But I can tell you, as a rule of thumb for me, I like to be at 70% refinancing. Okay, I'll buy a property at say like 25% in, sometimes even 20% in, but I refinance more at the 70%. Okay, because I actually have a little bit of risk aversion on this. Okay, now, and I give away ROI when I do that, but that's okay. That's my policy. Okay, question 4. How much will this add up to in real life? This is where it gets fun. Okay, you're still on my screen, right? You see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Let me show you the truth about 2 Aberdeen Road. Okay, the truth. I put a folder together for this meeting for 2 Aberdeen Road, and I'm showing you the settlement statement here of 2010. Okay, this is the 2010 settlement statement. Do you see my whole screen here? Actually, do you see my whole screen here?
I do, yes.
Okay, now What's the date that it shows right there?
May 21st, 2010.
Great. I just wanted to make sure you could see it.
Yeah.
I bought that property for $741,500. Okay. Now, when I buy property, oftentimes to get the seller to go take my price, I will put a giant chunk down right up front. Okay. And in this case, I put down 25%
Mhm.
at the offer purchase. Boom. That gets their attention. This is a tactic. Okay. You can do that because there are a lot of times that people are competing. So what did I put down? Deposit or earnest of money. I put down $185,375. Okay. Now, that was my purchase price and money down 25% in 2010. I then refinanced it in 2015. That's a different settlement statement. You see that? January 15th, 2015. Okay.
Yeah.
They gave me a loan and I cashed out at that point $467,000. Remember how much I put in?
Yeah.
186.
180,000. Yeah.
So here's the spreadsheet. Let's go through this. Okay, this is amazing. This is the real deal. Okay, so let me blow this up. Okay, 2 Aberdeen Road, Somerville, and I could do this with any one of my properties. You'd see it. Okay, every 5 years I refinance like clockwork. That's what I'm doing. Okay. $7,000 was the original rent that I bought that property at, and in 2010 it had a property value of $741,500, and that property value is actually proportionate to its income because banks will only pay you based on what that property is producing in rental income. Okay.
Mhm.
2015, I told you I refinanced it, and the property value was 1.44 million, and it had a rent at that time of $9,000. Now let's look over here. Let's look over here at these 2 columns. Okay, the original equity amount that I put in was 185,375, right? I showed you that on the settlement statement. Then I refinanced. I took out 466. Do you remember that earlier I said I put my money in, but I don't close my hand. I don't open my hand. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, I put it in, but then 5 years later I took it out. How much did I take out? I took all of it out, plus, right? Plus and some, right? So by 2015, how much money did I have in that property? Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
Nothing. So what's the return on investment?
Unlimited at that point.
It's infinite.
Yeah.
I just hit infinity. Okay. I got everybody's attention with a 30% return on investment. And what I just showed you is I'm infinite by refinancing. Okay. Now let's keep going. I told you that the property started to have some issues that I wanted to renovate it. I put $300,000 into renovating it. So now I've got $300,000 in. Okay, I put $300,000, and I'm now refinancing it right now. Okay, I'm about to close the refinance, and guess how much they're giving me? $899,000. They're giving me right now. They're giving me $899,000. Now do the math here. That means total cash out I've made on this property, okay, is $1.365 million. Okay. Total cash in was $485,000. Okay.
Mhm.
Net over the course since 2010, it's been 12 and a half years. Okay. Net, I have taken out of this property $880,000. These are real numbers. Okay. I've shown you the HUDs. These are real numbers. Okay. Now, what can you do with $880,000? Well, you can pay your kids' college tuition pretty handily, right?
Yeah.
That's why I wrote in my post earlier, you don't need a college fund, okay? You also don't need a 401k if you do real estate right. You don't need it because it's not going to produce like this, okay?
Yeah.
Put your money into real estate and be in the right places and follow the disciplined keys. These are the numbers you get. But let's say that you actually want to do what I do, which is reinvest it in property, okay? What get $880,000? And remember, this is tax-free, right? Why do people put money into college funds, right? Because they've got these tax-free ideas, right? Why do they put money into 401ks? Tax-free. But when they take it out of the 401k, they get taxed.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I told you, don't take cash flow. Refi, cash out, it's tax-free.
Right.
Oh,
And just
goodness.
so people understand this clearly, you're not after cash flow. You're not worried about, whether it's going to make you $200 a door, $500 a door per month. You're worried about what is it going to cash out after 5 years? And every 5 years clockwork. So you can cash out what 70% of the loan or 70% of the value and still have 30% equity in there, correct?
Yes, but just to refine what you said, I care about cash flow to the extent that it pays the expenses and my
Mhm.
mortgage. Okay, and the bank is going to make you do that. It's not like you have a choice. They're not going to give you a loan unless it pays your expenses and your mortgage. So
Now,
cash
in
flow,
that case, would you get an interest-only mortgage?
I mean, you could. I don't believe in that. I actually think you're better off having some component of that paid because otherwise you're going to have income. You don't want income. You want to be really at zero income and zero income tax, right? So with that in mind, continuing this point, right? So now I've shown you that this property over the course of 12 and a half years, I have pulled out of it net $880,000 and I still own it. Okay, how much am I going to pull out of it in the next 10 years? More, a lot more. Okay, but that $880,000, if you do what I do, I pull it out tax-free. What do I do with it? I reinvest it. So if you do the math, what is $880,000? So if anybody knows Excel, I divided by 0.25. I took the $880,000, I divided by 0.25. That means if I bought, say, a 75%, if I bought more mortgages, more properties at 25% into them and 75% mortgage, I can buy $3.5 million worth of property with what I pulled out of Aberdeen. Okay.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, how much money do I have in Aberdeen? Nothing. How much money I take out of Aberdeen? $880,000. Aberdeen is now buying me $3.5 million property after 12 years. Is this not insane?
Yeah,
It's insane. Okay. And I'm doing this on hundreds of properties. Okay. It's crazy. So when I say to people, this can be done, I'm doing it on a scale that I don't expect people to do, but you can do it on one and you can do it on two. Okay. Now, by the time you've done this for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, you're going to have so many properties that at that point you could pay off your mortgages and live off the properties. Okay. How much do you need to live? Right.
Yeah.
If you have a property producing $10,000 a month, Aberdeen, so let's look at what Aberdeen's producing right now. I renovated Aberdeen. Okay. In 2023, Aberdeen literally produces $15,000 a month. Okay. Now, this is a scale that I know is not existing in other areas. Every area is going to have its unique way. But let me say, I own some properties that I don't want to own, that I bought from my parents in central New York, that I just don't want to own, but they needed to retire, so I bought it from them. Okay. Those properties are performing great. And those properties are worth, $200,000 each house. Okay. And they actually have great return on investment. So even though I'm talking about, $1 million scale here, okay, and $15,000 in rent, the same thing applies at smaller scale. It's all great return on investment. So let me pause for a second because my next topic, and I want to be time conscious here, okay?
Sure.
My next topic is a fun one, but it may not be the right one for this meeting. I'm happy to keep going. My next topic is Section 4, how to pick the right property, okay? So the question really, Sonny, is how would you like to break this out? Would you like to continue? Because this is not a short section, but I can get through it. I can get through a lot.
Yeah. Let's do this another time because I think we need people to absorb the information that we talked about today and work on the next topic maybe in the next week or two. Is it okay if we ask some questions?
Yes.
There are some questions. There's actually a lot of questions, so I don't think I'm going to get to all of them, but probably the number one question is when you first got started. So people, that just graduated dental school, maybe within the last 5 years, they're asking, well, how do I get the money to put down? They're looking at properties and these properties they got to spend $1 million. How do I come up with $250,000? And I think that's, you got to save. I mean, you got to grind, you got to save. And You just got to make it happen. You know
Let me-
that if you're gonna be putting in, I don't know, $2, $3, $4,000 a month in the stock market every month, you could possibly do the same thing with real estate. You put it into some kind of money market fund or some CD or something, and let that money grow to a point where you can put money down for a property. I mean, what would your answer be?
So I have some interesting strategies here. So the first thing is, um, consider buying a 2-family home that you live in one of the units. Okay, because you're going to pay rent, right? There's some way that you're going to pay rent. Now, if you actually start to do the math, if you are paying the rent and you're living in one of the units, you can buy that home and actually not require too much additional cash. And what happens is, if you are living in the home, the bank will tend to extend to you a stretched loan. So they might even do it at 10%. Okay, so you can do that. Let me go a step further. One of the things I did, which was a little bit non-traditional, was I bought investment properties before I owned a home. I did that intentionally because I actually knew that once you buy a home, you kind of don't have anything else to spend. Whereas if you buy an investment property, it's going to help you buy your home, right? So now linking those two things I just said together, okay? You buy a 2-family house, you live in it, okay? You start to make money, right? And you start to make another nugget. Okay, that next nugget could go to your home, or if you haven't found the right home, feel free to rent because you don't need to own. There's a rent buy consideration. Sometimes it's just better to rent for years, okay, because it's cheaper and it's easier. Or you haven't found the right home and you don't need to rush to find your dream home. Okay, take your time, find your dream home, let it come to you, rent. Okay,
Yeah.
But again, tying those concepts together, let's say you bought a 2-family house. You're living, say, in the first floor, okay? Because the first floor tends to be a smaller unit. If you're a younger person, you don't need a gigantic unit, okay? And a 2-family house usually has a second and a third floor, okay? And you can rent a lot of space and make a lot of money, okay? And almost live in the first floor for free if you do that, okay? Which means you're now saving money, right? And it goes toward that future other nugget. But if you're doing what I'm saying, at some point, you want to now go buy another house, right? Well, when you go to rent your unit, the first floor unit that you've been living in, that unit will pay your mortgage for your house. Holy crap. Okay, so that is a really good entry strategy for property for a young person.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Would you suggest it's better for people to, obviously in this kind of situation, you gotta buy property where you're going to be living, but generally speaking, even if you have your primary residence, would it be better to invest in your local market? Or do you think that people should venture out wherever they can find good deals?
Well, so you should never buy in the place where you would want to own a single family home. Those are not rental markets. Okay, so I don't think that was your question. I think your question was, how far out of your stomping ground are you willing to go? Okay, and the answer is try not to go too far. Okay, for various reasons. Okay, the first reason is because you can't manage property from a distance. Okay, and we should talk about, I have friends who are in, dabble in real estate, and they have property managers. They don't want to bother with this. Okay, I actually feel like they give away a lot of money by doing that. And I like to manage things. I have a whole management team at the scale that I'm at, but even when I was really just at one property or two, I was really more hands-on. So I don't think that it's wise to get outside of your, a certain radius, maybe not more than 10 miles, and that's maybe excessive. Okay.
Wow.
But it prompts me to say another thing. If you're going to be in property and not be caring for your tenants, just don't get into property. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to be clear about this. Okay. We can make tons of money in property, but if you're going to do it at the cost and expense of mistreating a tenant, don't. It's not okay. We are stewards of people's mouths, their health, and part of being a doctor, in my opinion, is not stopping there. It really also comes down to, how do you steward your tenants? They are your guests, and you've got to think that way.
Yeah.
So being too far from them, you can't be a great steward.
Now, my question goes back to when you first started investing back in a college town. Tenants that are college students, they have a little bit higher level of partying and just maybe abusing the property. Did you ever run into those kind of issues, or how do you think that those? Because I mean, from the standpoint of guaranteed rent, I mean, I think that's there because sometimes you got to have the parents sign or co-sign the lease. But do you run into issues like that where the property is getting more abused because it's being rented?
We don't really rent to undergrads. Okay. We generally rent to young professionals and grad students. We do have some properties that are in that where we do rent to undergrads because they're right on the campus and they pay an enormous amount of money for these properties. And even those, really, we don't see damage. But where I only agree with that concern, we don't need to rent to undergrads. So we mostly don't.
Makes sense. Now going back to questions on location. Once how do you pick the property? I mean, there's you go on Zillow, you go on Redfin, you go on realtor.com. There's so many properties out there. But if you were to, if you were to start today and you had to pick 5 houses and you said, I got to narrow down to 2 of them, one of them, how do you even start that process? I mean, that's probably one of the biggest questions on people's minds is how do I get started?
Of course,
because it's such an overwhelming project to get your first house, to get your first rental.
And that's why it's section 4 that I prepared. Okay, it's section 4. It's how to pick the property, and that section has, let's see here, 5 subsections. So
if you want to do it tonight, let's do it.
Are you sure you want to do that?
Let's do it tonight because I'm intrigued now, and I think a lot of people are wondering the same thing.
Okay, here we go. So subsection 1, things to avoid. I'm just going to take it in order, okay, of the way I prepared it. Okay, subsection 1, things to avoid, and this is just a rattling off. Avoid Mother Nature. Okay, don't buy property near the ocean. Don't buy property near a river. Don't buy property, if you can, near a pond. Okay, you'll regret it. Industrial history. Okay, if you're buying a property with industry, you may find that you actually have an environmental problem that you didn't know you had. Okay, and if you have an environmental problem on that property, you might need to tear down the entire building, dig it, and then deal with your property problem that came from your property. Okay, so when I was a kid, people would just do work at their house or at their building, at their car shop, and where would they put the oil? They just put it in the soil. That's what they did. Of a car dealer or a station or a repair shop, either at the property that you're buying or next to it, think about maybe not buying it. Okay, properties, historically demarcated properties are very difficult to work with, and unless you know what you're doing, avoid historically demarcated. Low-income housing can be very lucrative, but be ready to deal with domestic disputes, roaches, all sorts of problems. I don't think most of the people listening to this want to be in that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Condos. Don't buy condos unless you have to. Okay. Why? The value, as I said earlier, I said trends. The population is growing. Land is staying still. Those are 2 trends. Okay. Mm-hmm. Land is going to be increasingly valuable. When you buy a condo, you don't have rights on the land. You basically have air rights. That's what you have. You're like a box in the air. That's what you have. You have no right to the land. If you're going to put some money somewhere, own the land. And when I say that, I'm actually talking about it from a legacy standpoint. I invest with my children in mind. Okay. I am training my children not only to understand property, but understand what power they can get out of. They can do service, benevolence, and things that I believe in. Okay, and so land helps you get there. Condo won't.
Mhm.
Land is going to increase in value because zoning is going to change. Right now, if you own a two-family house, it often can't be bigger. Maybe it has a right to be a three-family, but it can't be bigger. Most zoning won't allow it. But as populations continue to grow, zoning boards and zoning ordinances are going to have to get looser. And they're going to say to you, mark my word, they will say, okay, that two-family house, it can now go 5 stories. You can have 5 units there. Okay. If you own a condo, you got nothing. It has no benefit to you. Okay. But if you own the house and the land, well, now you can build 5 stories there. Okay. Or if you really didn't have an appetite to build 5 stories, you could potentially sell it, which I don't do, but you could. Okay. But you can't do it if you own a condo.
Yeah.
Rentable land. Okay. If you have a piece of property that you can rent as land, like a parking lot. Oh, parking lots are lucrative. Okay. Less so because trends are actually changing so that cars are not as much used, transportation. So these are trends. But don't buy a piece of land and put money into something that's not producing income. Not worth it. Okay. Things not that's section 2. Okay. Things worth pursuing or preferring. Okay. Corner lots. Okay, so if you have an option between 2 houses and one's a corner lot, buy the corner lot. Why? It has 2 areas of access to park something, and that has more value. If you have 2 units in that building, you can have these guys park over here. You can have these guys park over here. Corner lots. Contiguous properties. I took you guys for an aerial view, and what you saw is that I buy properties next to each other, and I try to assemble them. Why buy assemble them? Why is a property worth more that's right next to my other property? Because I'm thinking zoning and I'm thinking legacy. Generational wealth, right? My kids, I may be dead, okay, but one of my kids is going to say, "Hey, Dad put those 2 properties together, and if I tear down those buildings, I can build a skyscraper or whatever." Because buildings are going to get taller because density becomes a solution to deal with population growth trends. Be near universities and colleges. Aim for grad students. Expect parents will be guarantors. And these are transients. They are going to pay more because they don't want to own. They don't want to buy the property. They just want to rent. Rental suburbs to metropolitan areas are great. I showed you. I'm right outside of Boston. But do I own property in Boston? No, I'm outside of Boston. And people are, and those 2-family houses are so easy to manage. Building in Boston is much harder. Just a 2-family house. Try to get into walking distance of mass transit. Okay, that's section 2. Section 3, identify target rental communities. We did an aerial view. I took you over to Newton, Massachusetts. I said, don't buy here. They have too many trees. I joked, right? They have too many trees. Those are single family places. Don't buy there. Look, you need to find places that are rental communities, okay? And they're typically going to have that profile of they're near transit, they're near a university, they're just outside as a suburb of a city. But the key, and here's a pearl, okay? This is a pearl. Call a rental broker. If you want to know how to identify target rental communities, call a rental broker. So that means you go online and you Google it. Now, I did that, Sonny, for you, right? And so I actually went to, I know you're near Cincinnati, right? So I went and I did a quick search. I said, rental agent Cincinnati. And guess what I found? Cincy Rents, Cincinnati Rents, Cincy Rents, okay? You contact that person and you say, hey, I'd like you to help me buy a piece of property. They're gonna be like, buy a piece of property through me? I'm usually a rental broker, but you wanna buy it through me? Great, that means I get 2.5% on the sale. I'll do that with you. And you say, but I want you to help me find the right one that you can rent for me. Now you just gave them a double whammy. You're saying, I'm going to buy it through you. You're going to get a commission and I'm going to let you rent it for me. Boom. Now they're like, hey, I like Sonny. Let's do it. Right. And now and what you then do is you say, please, bring some properties to me, show me around, ask them to take you for a drive, in these communities. Okay. They'll do that. And then you say to them, and please put me on your daily property email. So they'll send you an email every morning. It's automatic. These companies have it's automatic. This property is now available today. And every morning you wake up and it's already in your inbox. Okay, and you're like looking at it and you're deciding, oh hey, that's a 2-family house. I've been looking for that. Continuing on here, what do they know that you don't know? Okay, those rental brokers, they know what good rents are. Okay, so you don't have to guess. They know the rents because they rent them every darn day. That's their job. What are the rents? Okay, they know where low vacancy areas are. Why? Because they know where they're having difficulty renting a property, and they know where they have no trouble renting. So they know low vacancies. They know where the credit-worthy tenants are. Why? Because they run credit reports all the time, right? They know how nice your place needs to be, and they can give you pictures of your competitors. Okay, I don't really think of them as competitors, but essentially, what your tenants are looking at as, I want to live here, or I want to live in your place. You'll know what you're trying to match. Now, if you want to just get started tonight, okay, just get on Redfin, get on Zip Realty, just start looking at rents, apartment rental in your area, and you'll see apartments come up, and you'll see what their prices are, right? You'll see where their locations are, and when you start to realize where all these apartments are, you'll start to realize that's a rental community, right? Because it's not going to be in a single family community.
Right.
Okay, section 4. How am I doing here for time? I've got 5 sections, so
We're good.
fine.
We're good.
Okay. Property size and property type. Okay, as I said, no single family homes. That's not an investment. The only single family home I own, I live in it.
Mm-hmm.
Renters rarely need all that space, and they won't pay for it. 2-family homes are easy peasy. They tend to be least expensive. They end up tending to have the best return on investment. That's amazing what I just said there. Well, if best return on investment, why are they even available? Mm-hmm. Honestly, I myself that year after year, and I've joked that my middle name, I think I'm going unstable. Do you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I know it's going in and out just a little bit, but we're good.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
As I was saying, I joke that my middle name is 2-family, Mo Family Riscala, because I preach to. Now it's not a trophy property, you can't necessarily. I have a 2-family house, but you brag about the return on investment you're getting, okay? And you don't need to brag, but you can feel it in your heart, right? I'm getting a great deal here, a great investment. 2-family versus a 3-family house. A 2-family has better value. Why? Various reasons, not the least of which, if you look at a 2-family lot, just land, and a 3-family lot, they're like the same, right? Yeah. And I told you from a legacy standpoint, you got to be focused on the land. So you're buying a family house, and it's being very productive versus a 3-family house. How many stories are there in a 2-family house? 3.
2, yeah.
How many stories are in a 3-family house? 3.
Yeah.
But the 2-family is cheaper, and the 2-family has the exact same amount of land. And when you actually do the math, in my area, to buy a 3-family house, you're paying $1.5 million. To buy a 2-family house, you're paying $1 million. But the 2-family is producing basically 80% of what the 3-family is producing, if not more, right? So it's not quite as much, but you're saving so much money. So the 2-family is a great deal, and you got to be thinking about that if you're a starter in real estate. Residential versus commercial. Okay, this gets really squirrely for people, and it's going to be controversial. Okay, I can tell you I avoid commercial. Now, people like commercial because generally you can rent commercial being very hands-off. You rent it, and your tenant becomes like they're responsible for their own place, and you're like, I want to be a dentist. That's right. What you do. Okay. And that's why dentists generally will say, or professionals will generally say, I only invest in commercial. I say, not, I don't want to. And here's why. Commercial is, especially now, people are working from home, right? So there's so many reasons why, there's Amazon, right? Retail's not doing well, office is not doing well. So all of these commercial spaces are becoming available. What happens when you have an oversupply? Prices drop. Mm-hmm. So you can't rent it. You can't rent it for a better price, but it gets worse because anybody who has commercial property will tell you when they go vacant for a while. I mean, my commercial properties will go vacant for a year. I don't even like commercial. I buy them because they're attached to residential. So I'll have like a commercial unit with a large residential building, and I make my money on the residential. The commercial is like, I hate it. Can I convert it to residential? Because I'm 100% occupied on my residential, but commercial, not so good. So you heard my position. I am quite sure you'll find a counterpoint, but I have to tell you, in my area, there's no reason to be in commercial. It's residential. Okay, now, section 5, price. What's it worth? Remember what I said earlier when we were doing aerials? I said, every one of these properties is a cash register, right? And you got to think about it. So you're not buying a home, right? And in fact, there are different appraisals for when you buy a home or when you buy an investment property, okay? If you go to buy a home, the appraisal is done based on a sales comparative, meaning how much is the other couple, because typically couples are buying single family homes for their kids and whatever. How much is the other couple willing to pay for that home and how do you compare, right? Or they bought a home down the street. Okay, how much are they willing to pay for the home down the street? So that appraisal is not based on rent because they don't rent the property themselves, right? That is based on simply sales comparatives, okay? The appraisal that you do for an investment property, when you go to invest in a property, you generally you'll mortgage it and you'll say to the bank, I want to buy this property. They say, great, we're going to do an appraisal on it, okay? And when they do the appraisal, they're not doing a sales comp. They're doing an income-based approach comp. They're saying, what's the rent? Why? Because they don't invest in homes, they invest in cash registers.
Right.
That's how they think. Okay. So when they go to do that, they're basically asking you, what is this property? How is it performing financially? And the number, the figure we use, the term we use in real estate is called cap rate. That's how they determine what that thing, how productive or how high performance is that property. So cap rate is basically your net income, your net operating income over the purchase price. It's just a ratio. If the property is worth $1 million and the purchase price is $1 million, how much is it producing every year? Okay. Mm-hmm. So if it's got let's say it's producing after expenses $50,000 and it's $1 million property, that's a 5% cap rate. Cap is capitalization. Okay. That's a 5 cap, 5%, 5 cap. Okay. Now, if I say to you, I like a 5 to 7 cap. I don't like to go below. I don't like to go above. You'd say, Mo, you're stupid. Why wouldn't you want a 10 cap? Why wouldn't you want a 20 cap? Duh, Mo, you're stupid. Okay, explain why. Okay, if I see a property that is a 10 cap, I don't want it. But Mo, it's making $100,000 over that million. Why wouldn't you want that? I don't want it because everybody else doesn't want it.
Right.
You see what just happened there?
Yeah.
When you get to when people are willing to pay a 4 cap, meaning they're only getting $40,000 for every million, okay? What they're saying to you as an investor, the investors are buying that at a 4 cap. They're saying, I love this property. It's in the right place. It's got massive appreciation. It's got all these things, okay? That's why they're buying it at a 4 cap. They'll buy it at a 3 cap, okay? I don't buy at that rate because I buy cash registers. I don't get emotionally attached to these things. But conversely, okay, if it's at a 10 cap, what it means is that other people are not attracted to it, okay? So 10 caps tend to be in areas that are not desirable. It will make good income, but it's in an area that's going to make you crazy with that tenant because the tenant type that you put in there is going to be terrible for you, okay? So what did I just say here? I said, don't look for the best price. That's essentially what I just said.
Yeah.
I said, basically look for a moderate cap rate, 5 to 7%, okay? And you're going to find that not by chasing the cap rate. That's not how you're going to find it. You're going to find it by asking the real estate agent and broker, what are the right areas? Where are the tenants qualified? Where am I going to get good rents and no vacancies, okay? And when you find that, you're going to be in that zone, okay? When you find areas where you're saying to them, where's the best price? Mm-hmm. Oh, oh, that's going to be your 10 cap. Don't buy it. Do not be lured by price. Be lured by the compilation of factors, which are good rents, no vacancies, qualified tenants. That's what you want. Okay. So now, loosely, and I'm almost finished here. Okay. Loosely, I will say to you that I actually, to do a cap rate analysis takes time, because you have to say to them, I want to see your property, give me the rents. I want you to tell me what the utilities costs are, what are the real estate taxes costs, what are the insurance. By the time you've got all that, well, then you can calculate your cap rate, because as I said to you, the numerator of cap rate is net operating income, which means you need to know the revenue minus the expenses. So you need to know the expenses, okay, over the purchase price. That means you've got homework to do, and they've got to give it to you. But you can do this simpler. This is now, you're never going to find this analysis. This is Mo Riscala's analysis. It goes like this. I use a gross income approach. You tell me how much that thing's making, and I'll tell you if I'm even willing to look at the cap rate. Okay. Here's how it works. I want $700 to $1,000 in monthly rent per $100,000 of purchase price. What does that mean? It means if you say to me that the property costs $100,000, I'm going to say, how much does it rent for? And if you say 600, I say I'm out. I'm not interested. If you say 700, I say I'm listening. If you say 1,000, I say show me more. Okay, it's going to rent. You're telling me for buy $100,000 piece of property and it's making $1,000 a month. I want to know more. It's making $700 a month. I kind of want to know more. It's making less than 700. I don't want to know. I'm not even going to spend time investing in analyzing it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now scale that up. Okay. It's $1 million property. It's the same math, but it's no longer $100,000 unit. It's now times 10. Okay. So that means I want $7,000 minimum out of that per month of $1 million property. Okay. Or if I'm really home running it, I'm getting $10,000 a month out of that $1 million property. Okay. But $700 to $1,000. Now, what I didn't do is do any kind of an expense analysis. I just said gross income. I didn't say net income. It's just $700 to $1,000 per 100,000. So that's the loose figure as to whether or not I'm willing to even analyze it. Now, let me summarize, and thanks for letting us go through the whole process tonight. Key 1, select the properties with good rent vacancies. Key 2, mortgage 70 to 80% so that you get the 30+% return on investment. Key 3, refinance every year, tax every 5 years, untaxed. Key 4, never sell, with an asterisk, unless you made a mistake buying the property and you need to just shift the money into another property because you didn't buy a good producer, because you were not disciplined. Okay. If you're disciplined, never sell. If you find yourself getting loose with your discipline and you make a bad decision on a property, get rid of it. It's a dog. Go back to your discipline. That's it.
That's awesome. Now, when you talk about someone just asked this question, at some point you sell or you never sell, because you're basically saying, like, at some point, okay, when the person passes away, the beneficiaries get the properties at a step-up basis. Is that basically the goal behind it eventually? Because by not selling ever?
I mean, you got to ask yourself, why are you selling? As I described, I gave you this visual. You can exit. You just get to keep clawing it out. The only reason to consider selling, is if you're physically unable to do it anymore and you don't have anybody else to do it for you. You could be debilitated and hire a manager. Managers will manage your property at 5%. Okay, of revenue. Okay, 5%. At 5% with a return on investment of 30%, why would you sell? I don't understand. What are you going to do with that money? Like, let's say you did what I have Aberdeen, as you were discussing where you're going. I just said, let's look at Aberdeen. Okay. After 5 years or 10 years or 12 years, you have $880,000, right? Mm-hmm. What are you going to do with it?
Right.
Okay. Unless you're planning to buy a yacht, Or, I mean, you're retired, 65 years old. What are you going to do with $880,000? By then, you've got a home, you've got a car, you've got most of the things you want in life, right? So this becomes a consumer decision as to, I don't know the answer that someone would give and says, this is my reason to sell. As far as I can tell, why wouldn't you want a producing annuity for every day until you're dead, and then you give it to your kids if you have kids?
Mhm. Makes sense. Here's the good question. Why refinance every 5 years? Does the math work out better that way, or could you really do it anytime, 7 years, 10 years?
So as I described to you on this whiteboard, okay, every 5 years, you're going to be, I showed you an average, United States average of about 5%. Okay, so every 5 years, you're going to basically you're going to have earned equity of 25%. Okay, if you have 25% plus the 20% that you had in there, what's your return on investment? So I find that 5 years actually is like a good time to exit and cash out. If you wait longer than that, you're basically just not pursuing growth.
Right.
So, and I'll go a step further. Mortgages tend to be, you can't refinance in the first year. You can't refinance in the second year. You can't refinance in the third year. Why? Because they have prepayment penalties. So typically the first 3 years, you're not allowed to refinance because they will penalize you for it. So what I've found is that my sweet spot is 5 years. I exit. I'm going to have some closing costs to do that, but I exit with a big chunk.
If you were just starting out today, do you think with the increase in interest rates, can someone still get started?
So someone asked this question, and I actually wrote a response to them.
Yeah.
You know, this is a very interesting thing. There is never a time. Here's the thing. There's never a time when you shouldn't be buying as a result of interest rates. Never. Just buy. Okay. Let me explain why. Most people think of interest rates and they think, you know, that's what you're really paying, right? A 6%, a 7% interest rate. That's what they're charging me. Actually, that's just not quite how it works. So there is this thing called the nominal interest rate. The nominal interest rate is what the bank says you're paying, 6%, 7%. But the nominal interest rate equals inflation plus the real interest rate. Okay. Whether or not you buy, you're going to be subject to inflation. Okay. So typically the real interest rate is around 2%. Okay. Now that means that when interest rates are low, let's say an interest rate is 4%, you're like, hey, this is a great interest rate. Okay. You're still dealing with 2% inflation. Remember that 4%, it was 4% 2 years ago, right? What was inflation? 2%.
Yeah.
And then they added 2% to it. So your real interest rate back then was 2%. And if you didn't buy something, you were still losing money at 2%, right? So your real interest rate continues to be 2%. Now, today, interest rates are 6.5 to 7-ish%, okay? But your real interest rate is still 2%. The bottom is actually inflation. Okay, now here's what, now, and you can look that up, like, right, go to Google, right, type in nominal interest rate versus real interest rate. You'll see exactly what I just said, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, what's interesting about it is, if you put your money into anything other than property, it will not be inflation proof. But if you put it in property, it's inflation proof. So if you're saying, I don't want to put my money into property because the interest rates are too high, what you're essentially saying is, I want to make myself believe that I'm not losing value. But you are. Okay, now why does property inflate? Why is it inflation proof? Okay, so number one, there are three mechanisms that allow property to be inflation proof and why you should not be worried about the interest rate. Okay. The first mechanism is that when inflation hits, the cost of an apple increases. Okay, well, cost of rents increased too. Mm-hmm. Okay, so inflation went up, your interest rate went up, but your rents went up too. There's a little lag. Okay, there's a lag. Okay, but rents go up, right? So if you don't buy the property, well, then you're not going to get into that property and experience those rents. So I get in the property. I know rents are going to rise. They're going to catch up. At the end of the day, my tenant's going to pay my interest and my principal. That's what they're going to do. How do I know? Because I keep cashing out. Remember my hand. I didn't put anything in. I'm at zero. Okay. You're saying interest rates are too high, so I'm going to grab less. What? You're basically running an infinite return on investment. Think about it. Okay.
So
Now,
would that apply to refinancing also? Like if you were sitting on a 4% mortgage and you could cash out at the 5-year mark but your new mortgage was going to be 8%, would you still do it?
yes, but before I answer that, I'm going to answer that with giving you the other two mechanisms. So mechanism one is rents are going to rise. So they're going to keep up with your interest rate because rents went up. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is your property value rises. Okay. So when inflation hits and your interest rates hit, okay, if you're in property, the property increases in value. It follows it. Now, you can't do that with a CD. Okay. You put your money into a CD, let's say it's giving you a 1% return. Okay. And you're like, I don't want to buy property because the interest rates are high. Okay. You're losing money on that CD. It's providing you 1% and its value is decreasing. Did the money you put into that CD inflate? No, it's not following inflation. Okay. But the property will. So the property, if you go to buy that same property next year, it's worth more, right? Following inflation. Here's the third mechanism. This is amazing, right? If you buy a piece of property and inflation hits and your interest rates go up and interest rates are high, you're paying back less. Whoa. That means I borrow $1 million today. The net present value of what I pay in the future is less through inflation. So property has three mechanisms that are inflation proof. So now take that and combine that with the interest rate, with the return on investments that I've just described to you. I've described to you a base return on investment, if you're disciplined, of 30% to what? Infinity. 30% to infinity, right? Mm-hmm. And you want to say to me, I don't want to buy that return on investment because interest rates are too high and your tenants are going to pay it.
Yeah. Could there be, go ahead.
So now back to your question of when do you refi? Okay. Well, the analysis to refi becomes, I've got it on the screen. Okay. So on the right here, you have this green cell, $880,000. Okay. If you refi, pull that out and go buy more property at $3.5 million worth of property this year. Mm-hmm. Okay. No, don't wait till next year. That means this year you're going to get leverage on $3.5 million. Go back to the houses. How many houses can you divide over? And then what you're outputting in terms of your return on investment. Okay. So you're saying to me, maybe we wait till next year. Yeah, you're going to lose all that if you wait. Okay. On that volume of $3.5 million. Right. So here's what's really interesting is that what you just asked, and I know people think, is let's wait because interest rates are too high. Everyone thinks that. Everyone, right? It seems somewhat intuitive. But actually, when you actually look under the hood, you go, that's not even true. Yeah. Well, that means that I can buy a lot of property now at a better price because some people want to sell, like grandma died or whatever, right? And that property is now vacant. They need to exit. Okay, these are not real estate people. They want to exit. But all the buyers are thinking that way you just described, which is interest rates are too high. Let me tell you something. I buy when interest rates are high. I can get the best deals. If you could take $100,000 off of a piece of property because you're the only buyer in town, plug that into your calculation, right? And then plug all these other things I've said into calculation. Actually, it's the best buying time when interest rates are high. Now, people are going to be like, that's crazy. It's true. It's true. And and then in 5 years, when interest rates are lower, you're going to refi, but you'll have had 5 years of growth. Think about that.
Yeah. In terms of the growth, could there be an environment where we have a repeat of 2008, 2009, where property value just stays stagnant for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. I mean, I think, if you look at the values from the peak of 2007, I mean, and some people will say it really it took almost 10 years for some of those areas to see those values back at the 2007 peak, and then some even longer. I think some didn't reach that peak until the housing market really started to take off in 2020, 2021, where the market really started to show some huge appreciation in pricing. I think real estate prices were up 35-40% over the last 2 years, 3 years or so. So what if there's an environment of a longer term deflation in the housing market?
So there's so many ways to answer that, but I'm going to debunk that. Okay. So as I described to you, there are two appraisal values that you consider. Okay. One is the income-based approach, right? And the other is the comps approach. Okay. You're really talking about the comps approach. Okay. What is a family willing to pay for a piece of property? Okay. And that moves up and down mostly with the economy because they don't have the spending capital. Okay. But when you are buying a cash register, it's a different calculation. Okay. People still need to live there, right? They can't just sort of like, hey, the economy's down, it's 2008, so we're just going to disappear, right? We don't need a rental. Okay. That's not true in the rental market. I did not experience a blip in growth in rentals. So it's really, you're talking about the question of where are you buying? Are you disciplining the way I've described on the 4 keys? And if you are disciplined, rental communities are immune. My property values continued to skyrocket during those periods.
Yeah, that makes sense. Some people actually ask this question: can you describe what actually a 2-family is? Because people are actually wondering what is an actual 2-family.
Yeah. So your typical 2-family house looks like this. Okay. You walk in the front door there. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You walk in the front door and there are 2 doors. Okay. One door goes into the first floor and you have like a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment on the first floor. The second door enters to stairs, and you go up the stairs, and you've got the second level is the first level of that unit, and then this A-framed third level is the second level of that second unit. So it's a 2-unit house.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. Now, are duplexes considered the same way, or are those a little bit different?
So the word duplex is a very strange thing. People use it in various ways. So is that what you mean by duplex?
Yeah.
Okay, so in my area we call that a townhouse. So it's a multi-story house where the doors are entering from the outside.
Makes sense. Okay. I tell you what, I mean, there are still a lot of questions. I don't think we're going to get to all of them, but we're going to have to do this again because there's so much information that I learned tonight. A lot of people are just ecstatic about the stuff that you presented. People are excited. I really want to get you back in the next few weeks to talk about the next steps, just talk about, what else there is to discuss. Because I feel like we're just scratching the surface on some of this, but it is so detailed. I mean, you did such an amazing job going into really how to pick a property, but there's so much more to discuss. And I enjoyed every bit of that. But I know it's getting a little bit late. I know people have work tomorrow. You have work tomorrow. I have work tomorrow. So I want to make sure everyone gets some sleep. So
let me just end with this. Okay.
Yeah.
When I bought my first investment properties, not my office, but my first investment properties, it changed my practice. It changed my entire worldview. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had at that point done a prediction on where I'm going to be at 65 years old. And I realized at that point that no matter what happened with my practice, I was going to have a very healthy income at 65 years old. Okay. Just pulling money out of these properties. Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to leave on that because, man, we work so hard as dentists. I have such a heart for my colleagues. Okay. And what a wonderful experience it was for me in 2007. I bought my office in 2004, but my investment properties of multifamilies in 2007, it changed everything for me, really, because I had so much peace knowing I've got a retirement system, I've got a college system, I'm good. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, thank you. And I know that it's really going to be life-changing for a lot of people that are just wanting to get started, but just don't know what the next step is. And I truly think, the stuff that you talked about tonight, these are real life examples. People can go out there, start that tonight, start that tomorrow, and talk to their real estate brokers, talk to their rental brokers, and just really make connections, at least network in their local cities to start meeting people and really just take the next step. There's no reason not to.
Right, and it works at every scale, whether the property is worth 100,000, a million, 10 million, it works at every level. And you just keep exponentially growing your equity and cashing out tax-free. It's fun, guys. You can do amazing things with this.
It really is. All right. So yeah, stay on here. I gotta talk to you so we can schedule the next one. But thank you guys. We'll be back soon. But thanks so much for your time. And we'll definitely talk soon. Thank you, Mo.
My pleasure.